sultry than when their parents or grandparents entered adulthood. Little wonder that so many are lured by those whispering voices, the ones that tell them that individual initiative, startups, and for-profit businesses are the keys to changing the world and getting paid in the process. This book is about those cultural whispers, where they came from, how they became so pervasive, and how they shape not only personal decisions, but also our politics and public life. It asks how our conception of work became so individualized and how so many people became convinced that the path to success lay in working for themselves. There are more than 33 million businesses in the United States today. Only about 4,000 are publicly traded corporations, that is, owned by stockholders, and only another 16,000 are large by the government's definition, more than 500 employees. More than 99.9% of all companies, in other words, are small. And the overwhelming majority, 81% or 27 million, have no employees. The only people who work for them are the owners. All told, the U.S. government estimates that about 1 in 9 people in the workforce can be described as working for themselves today. The puzzle of this book is how that vast and unorganized community of business owners came to embody a cultural ideal, and how that ideal came to dominate our national conversation about economic life. At first glance, we might assume that this is nothing new at all. Our history books, after all, are chock full of peons to self-made men, and once in a while, self-made women. As far back as the 1780s, Thomas Jefferson famously praised independent yeoman farmers as bastions of democratic virtue, since they controlled their own livelihoods. Rugged individualism has been a central part of America's national mythology since before the advent of the term itself, which is linked in our collective memory to the mythos of Teddy Roosevelt at the turn of the 20th century. For many people, and for centuries, independence has literally meant that you don't depend on anyone else, a government, a family, a master, or even an employer. Yet despite those deep roots, America's individualistic culture has not always translated into a call to work for yourself. Although self-interest and individual responsibility are central to capitalism, nothing about the capitalist ethic is incompatible with working for someone else. To the contrary, throughout the history of capitalism, that was the whole point. Laborers, managers, and executives alike all traded their time and energy for wages and salaries. In the United States, the ideal of working for someone else reigned supreme as recently as the mid-20th century, buttressed by a very different economy from the one we know today. In the quarter century after World War II, economic growth was rapid and, relatively speaking, evenly shared. Average incomes went up across the board. The gap between rich and poor got smaller. Rising numbers of people ascended into the middle class, with its amenities like affordable homes and cars, as well as family vacations and college for the kids. And the central vehicle for that growth was reliable, well-paid work, typically at a large company, for the generally male family breadwinner. For the people who were included, this was the dream. For those who were kept out, including especially people of color, women, and the very poor, it became the thing to mobilize and fight for. Success and opportunity were not defined by going it alone in the post-war years, but rather by steady employment, by working for somebody else. So, what changed? Americans in the 1950s and 1960s were every bit the ideological descendants of Thomas Jefferson and Teddy Roosevelt that we are today. Why does this individualistic ethic now push us towards self-employment, business startups, gigging, and so on, when it didn't back then? If it's tempting to think that our go-it-alone culture has always existed, it's perhaps equally tempting, however paradoxically, to conclude that it has emerged just in the past few years with the advent of new tech and recent economic hard times. In the first quarter of the 21st century, new communications technology